Hello and welcome to another edition of the Door 14 Hockey Podcast. I'm your host Marty alongside Dave,
Hello.
John, possibly not, and Aaron.
Hey!
John's on a bit of a delay. I think the weather in Scotland is really knocking him off. So while he looks like he's here and he looks like he's kind of still active there, I don't know. He may be a delay, so we'll get John back whenever we can. Guys, let's continue on without him until he does maybe come on board with ourselves. Dave, I know I seen you last night, but how are you doing?
Good. Was a cracking game. Obviously, we'll be talking about it later, but yeah, it was a good night.
Yeah, it was indeed. We will talk about the European nights in the arena in a bit more detail in the next period, but we will get to that. And Aaron, the last recording you were in America. How are you doing?
I'm good. I enjoyed America quite a bit, but unfortunately, just like any trip that I have at the moment, I brought back the flu. So had that myself, and I've given it to the entire family, which is fun.
It's fun. So it's being passed around. You're very nice. I've got to say, you're right. You're very nice. You're always
so generous.
You're always
sharing is caring,
thoughtful,
yeah.
and you're always thoughtful and bringing back some kind of lurgy whenever you're on your travels. So at least you're consistent that way. And John, I don't know if you are there or not. He seems to have went off completely now. But we'll get him back in a few minutes, hopefully. And John will join us. It has been a busy fixtures list, shall we say, since our last recording just over 2 weeks ago. We've seen lots of games both in the league here, in the Elite League in the UK, as well as the Cup. And the Belfast Giants, our own team here in Belfast, have had 2 Challenge Cup fixtures as well, which we will get into. We'll just change that until John comes back because we're looking for. Hang on. I don't even know if I have one. I'll take it off. We will get John back, hopefully. Guys, if you're happy enough, what we'll do is we'll get stuck into our normal show. We do have our normal 3 periods of hockey, and on this week's episode, we do have a new feature, which we are excited to put out there. It's our new 14 with 14 feature, which is the brainchild of John, who unfortunately has popped out, but hopefully we'll get back. And we'll get stuck into our show as we normally would do, starting off with our, oh, John, yay, you're back. Can you actually hear us this time?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hopefully you can hear me. That's been a complete disaster. Hopefully you have gone over the fact that there is a storm raging just outside the shed window, and it's a bit of a big one.
No, we didn't mention it. We just said it was pretty bad weather. I did ask before we came on. We did ask before we came onto the podcast, what level of storm had we got to? And you had mentioned that it was to the point where we could be seeing liftoff of trampolines and that sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely. There will be TikTok videos with people with broad Scottish accents going, "Oh my god, trampoline, trampoline!"
We have just got to the point, John, when we're just going to go across the league fixtures in the Cup. But before we do that, just check in with you, see how things are going. How are you up there in Scotland? How's things been the last 2 weeks?
Things have been good. Things have been nice and chilled out, actually. Trying to think what's happened over the last couple of weeks. Were you here before the last episode, Marty? I can't honestly remember what's happened.
Yes.
So yes. I've been to one game in Fife. I went to the shootout game, so that was interesting.
Yeah, we'll maybe get onto that as well. You can give us your rundown on your take on that game in Fife last week. We did mention as well, John, that we do have our new feature coming up, 14 with 14, but you can kind of give us a bit more background in that when we get to that point later on in the show, if that's okay. So we'll get stuck in as we normally do, and we'll take a quick rundown through the league and Cup standings as they are in the Elite League here in the UK. Starting off with the league, we're going to look at the league first and foremost. So the Sheffield Steelers are currently sitting top with 6 games played and 10 points, followed by the Nottingham Panthers with 5 games played, 8 points. Manchester Storm sit in 3rd with 4 games played and 7 points. Belfast Giants sit in 4th with 3 games played and 6 points. Cardiff are in 5th, 4 games played, 4 points. Fife are in 6th with 3 games played, 3 points. Dundee are in 7th with 4 games played, 3 points. Coventry are in 8th with 4 games played and 3 points. Glasgow in 9th, 4 games played, 3 points. And Guildford Flames sit in 10th with 4 games played and 2 points. Okay. as we normally would do, let's get your reactions and your thoughts, guys, on how currently things are standing in the league. Dave, we're going to come to you first. Sheffield Steelers sitting in their top 6 games played, 10 points. Have only dropped 2 points so far in the 6 games that they've played. And the Nottingham Panthers sitting in second with 5 games played and 8 points. So starting off their season pretty good and pretty strong there. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it's obviously definitely the way they want to see it go. They are thing that bugs me is the Steelers are being a bit smug for it only being a few games in. They done a post on Twitter or X or whatever heck it's called these days, X, saying that great start and blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's all right. It's not bad, but it's 6 games, so we'll all be fairly early doors. You're not going to see anybody sort of set in winning ways for another few weeks and months.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it is early doors, but again, some teams have took off strong. Some teams, surprisingly, maybe not having the best start that they were hoping for. Maybe in this league campaign, especially given the amount of pressure maybe they were under coming into this campaign, given how well they did last year. We're looking at Guildford Flames there, but John, coming over to you, what's your thoughts? I mean, mid-table kind of area there. You've got Belfast Giants, who so far I think are the only team who've got maximum points out of the maximum games they've played. So 3 games played and 6 points in total. I think they're on an unbeaten streak at the moment, and I'm sorry to say that. Touch wood, I haven't jinxed or anything. What's your thoughts? Just middle pack table at the moment.
Middle of the table is not going to stay middle of the table. There are a couple of teams up at the top end who are not going to stay there. Look, let's be totally honest. Manchester, Nottingham, you're not staying at the top end. There are Belfasts and Cardiffs who are fit to come and overtake you in mere weeks, I think is how that's going to happen. Giants have obviously been delayed with playing domestic games with the CHL, which we're going to talk about, I'm sure. And Coventry haven't had the best of starts alongside Guildford. And I know you asked me about the middle table, but those are teams that I think are going to be middle table. They're fit to come up. The one thing in the middle of the table I'm quite glad to see is Fife Flyers. I said it last podcast. I think I've said it for the last couple of podcasts. Fife are, in my opinion, the strongest of the Scottish teams by far. And I think that's a position that they deserve to be in right now. And I think they will stay a mid-table team through the rest of the season. Whether they break into the top 5, I don't know, but that should be what they're aiming for.
Yeah, I would agree. Top 5 has to be what we're going for. In terms of the bottom there, you kind of touched upon it. Glasgow having played 4 games and scoring 3 points, but a lot of chatter online from a lot of people who've seen them so far or who've seen Glasgow playing is that a lot of potential coming from the team. And we talked before about what we kind of thought in relation to those 3 Scottish teams and who'd be maybe the top for the 3 Scottish teams, Fife, Dundee or Glasgow, and who will come at top there. At the moment, kind of your prediction, John, and from what we said, Fife Flyers sitting there on top of the 3 Scottish teams. I mean, they have looked the strongest so far out of the seasons. I mean, there's no argument there, even in the cup standings wise, Fife have looked stronger.
Yeah, I think this is a season that the Flyers will more than likely, if the wheels don't fall off, they will make playoffs. I think they can have another pop at the cup this year. I think this is a season with a new coach, with a new approach, and just going off the back of the interview that Tom Coolan did with A View from the Bridge was fantastic. The guy's come in with absolutely no preconceptions of what this league is. Clearly, he's disappointed with the way that the fixtures are organised, and who can blame him, especially with the sort of home-away travel when you're playing teams that are a fair distance away from you. It's an absolute nightmare. And God love him, he didn't even, I think, realise that Fife made the final of the Cup last season. It was the lads on A View from the Bridge had to tell him that. So, yeah, look, he's the right guy at the right time for that team. And like you say, I think, yeah, that mid-table is where they need to aim. Like, they can surprise us in post-season, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're only, 3 weeks into the domestic season, so let's carry on as if we expect the entire season to run on.
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. I think you're right. Aaron, before we move on to just look at the cup, your thoughts, any particular teams, any particular points of the league that that have caught your attention?
No, it would just be a complete summary of what Dave and John have just said there. It's really early days to get any type of view on this, but it is surprising to see Guildford way down at the bottom, like right down at the bottom this early on. So we'll be keeping an eye on those, and I'm very excited to see Fife in the middle of the table at the moment. It's good to see a shake-up going on in Scotland at the moment. I actually hope they get a bit further up in the middle of the table.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think you're right with the Guildford thing. You know, being 10th there, as I've already mentioned, as I kind of already alluded to, it was such a coming into this season. There was so much pressure already on Guildford coming in, and the fact that people were looking at Guildford, being like, what are they going to do? You know, how are they going to maintain or kind of do better than what they did last year? So a lot of pressure on Guildford. So we hope that obviously maybe that kind of maybe turns around for them as well, and their season maybe starts to kind of pull together a bit more. We will talk about Guildford a bit more in our episode, especially in our period 1, because there was a bit of change and shake up there in this week in Guildford. And so we will come back to Guildford later. Guys, let's take a quick look across to the cup standings. Our favorite cup of all, our favorite piece of silverware that is on offer, and that is the Challenge Cup here in the Elite League. Group A qualified already, as we mentioned in the last podcast, is the Belfast Giants, having played 5 games with 10 points. Their 6th game is this weekend against Glasgow Clan, I believe, here in the SSE Arena. The Fife Flyers sit in 2nd with 6 games played and 6 points. I think they've pretty much qualified, I would say, at this stage, having played all of their 6 games. And Glasgow Clan are sitting in 3rd with 3 games played, 2 points. Unfortunately, Dundee has played 4 of their games and have scored no points so far. In Group B, we have the Cardiff Devils, having played 4 games and scoring 6 points. Coventry Blaze have played 4 games and scored 4 points, and Guildford have played 4 games, scoring 2 points. And in the Group C, then we have the Sheffield Steelers playing 3 games, making 6 points out of that. So again, full points from the 3 games they've played. Nottingham Panthers have played 3 games and scored 2 points, and the Manchester Storm have played 4 of their games and scored 2 points. It's again, we're kind of getting to the point where this thankfully it'll still drag out probably until November time. We are at a point where the group stages will be coming to an end quite soon. Have most people playing their maximum amount of games that they're due to play in those group rounds. I suppose right now it's looking at that. Who is the team that's going to drop out? Shall we say? And it looks this time it's going to be the Dundee Stars. I think it's pretty. Yeah, well, what am I trying to ask? Is it inevitable now, do you feel, that Dundee are not going to progress to the next stage, or do you think they could pull it back in the last 2 games they've got? John?
No, they're done. They've laid an egg in 4 games. They're not bringing that back. The Challenge Cup is already over for Dundee and Mark Lefebvre's team. That is a team who have gone from being in crisis last year to being in an abject crisis this year. It's horrendous what's going on there.
What do you have for that? Oh, right, okay. Anthony from Banners on the Wall. He's made a comment just so for anybody who's listening to the podcast, our traditional method of people listening to this show, the Elite League Challenge Cup, the only format works is a picture in TIFF. I'll say TIFF. Probably pronounce something really random. It's a bit like the JPEG thing and the GIF thing. So anyway, guys, that's, I suppose. Oh, sorry, I should ask anybody else any other opinions on the Challenge Cup.
My opinion is king. Just move on.
Dave, coming to you next. Your thoughts on standings for the Challenge Cup? Anything that's likely to change at this point, or do we think we've got our cemented next rounds already put together?
It looks fairly solid, with the exception of Glasgow with extra games, but with the group they're in, it's pretty much done. So it's lovely to see the Giants, fingers crossed, take full points. But even if they don't, it's still in good shape. So
there's still that top seed to play for. So every game is a win in the Challenge Cup in the group stage. So we know that brings home advantage down the stretch.
Yep. I was just about to ask that next question there to Aaron. I was going to say, obviously the home advantage is up for grabs, and obviously it's shown how important that is when it comes to the later stages of this competition, especially when it comes to the hosting of the final. If you get to that point, so the Giants need to push through and get that final point, their final few points.
Certainly. You don't think this is so jarring? In the last conversation, we're like, oh, it's too early days to get any gauge on how this is going to go, and then you jump to the cup and you're like, oh, Giants have already qualified. and Dundee's aren't. It's so jarring when you go from one to the next.
Yeah,
But
sorry. We've already clinched in the group stages, yet no one's going to lift that trophy until March. What a nonsense!
Exactly. Anyway, but yes, let's get those further points to get another home game there.
Every year we complain about this thing, and it's absolutely god awful. Like, it should be done like the Aladdin Cup and be done before they have a drop the puck first.
Another cup that nobody cares about.
Exactly. Yeah. This one here, though, we have to play till the end of the mid-year.
Guys, we live in hope for next year. We've been almost promised that they're going to look at the structure for the Challenge Cup coming next year.
No, they're not.
So,
No. What we've been promised is probably they're going to use CHL rules. They're not going to change the format. They're not going to do anything else. They're just going to say a 2-minute minor is 2 minutes.
I won't have you saying anything against those rules. They're brilliant.
We are definitely going to talk about that in our first period. It's the first story in period 1. We will be talking about those rules and what we think of those now. Guys, before we move on to your period 1, I just want to kind of get a general feel for what you guys think in relation to, should we even touch upon the standings right now in the NHL, given the fact I think maximum of 3 games or 4 games have been played there because it only started in the last week. I'm going to say probably not until maybe later in the season, until it becomes a bit more important for the Stanley Cup playoff standings. But if you kind of want to get a rough idea of how things are going, we'll just take a quick look at who's at top. So in the Atlantic Division, Boston are sitting
Of course,
top.
you guys don't want to talk about it. None of you are.
As it stands, none of us are making playoffs except for Dave. So let's just move on.
Exactly, because what I was going to say was the top 4 wildcard spots in the Eastern in the Eastern Conference, all sitting on 4 points each. There's no real need to go through it. Yeah, okay, John, Dave, you're sitting in the second place there in the Western. But so I think it's probably early days. So I think maybe if we come back to maybe in our next episode, or maybe probably towards the end of November, and probably more tasty at that point. But we'll leave it for there for now, and we'll skip past the current standings because, as I say, it's really most teams have only played 3 games, so we'll wait for a few more games.
Listen, it's NHL regular season. Who cares?
Harsh. John, how's the season open for you guys there? Is that maybe why you're not?
And let's move on.
Just for reference, for anybody who doesn't know, Nashville is John's team, currently sitting with 4 games played and 2 points. Currently sitting 8th in the wild card spots there for the Western Conference.
I remember what I wasn't even the opener. I think it was just a warm up game between the Flyers and the New Jersey Devils. Fuzz, and it was. I caught the highlights the next day, and it was 6-0 to the New Jersey Devils, and I was like, great. Let's hope the season gets better than that.
What was the stat you threw out though, Aaron, last season? Something about complete and abject failures of seasons then lead to brilliant successes for the Flyers somehow.
Yes, let's go for that. Well, I can't remember what the stat was. It was something like so many games lost in a row then led to them making the playoffs or something like that. Didn't work
surely
out
an opener, surely a 6-0 opener means that you're going to then just go on an absolute run and win the cup.
That's what I'm hoping for.
The only thing I'll say about Toronto is Austin Matthews, first 2 games, 2 hat tricks in a row. Beautiful start.
Doing you lots of good there.
Yeah, and then
it's phenomenal start. Yeah,
and then we talked about Connor
Bedard,
and then that fantastic trip from Theo Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury, sorry.
Fleury, yeah. Fleury, yeah, that was pretty unique. He's, I mean, we could talk about Bedard again. I know Mark, fan of the show, had asked the question about what we kind of thought Bedard in his first season, and so far it's been, I suppose, the most entertaining part is that the mic seems to be catching him a lot, where he's having conversations with the refs and stuff, and it's he just seems like a real young child, be like, "Oh, I've faced off against Sidney Crosby. Did you see that? He keeps beating me. And I haven't won one at all." It's really it's properly and the ref be like, "Oh, you're doing really well being in the league." It's been really funny, kind of just watching those little bits and pieces, or his reactions to certain things or seeing certain players. And I know Brad Marchand had introduced himself in a nice physical way as well in their first meetup. So it's been quite fun to watch that at least. Guys, I think that's it for our preamble, our pre-warm-up. If you are happy enough, what we'll do is we'll get stuck into our period 1 of hockey. Okay, period 1 is a roundup of news from around the UK. I'm going to start us off, and we had alluded to this already in our pre-game, shall we say, and that is the Belfast Giants had 2 games recently in the CHL since our last recording. I'd like to say 2 great games, 2 phenomenal games, but winning both games. The Giants have, unfortunately, they'll bowed out of the CHL, even after the unbeaten home record. Unfortunately, it wasn't in their hands last night in the SSE Arena. We, Belfast Giants fans, were needing other teams to kind of do us a favor and win, and unfortunately, it just didn't happen. Giants did take the win last night against Trackside Dynamo Produce. Yeah, Produce. And they did win 3-2 at home. Fantastic game from start to finish. We were 2-0 down at one point to come back, rebound back, and take the win in a very impressive performance, shall we say. Really gritty team performance. I mean, the whole thing from start to finish was just a fantastic night. And I kind of said this on my own personal Twitter account last night, and I'm sure Dave and John and Aaron, you were at a CHL game this year as well. Sorry, you were at the first CHL home game. I mean, there's just something about those European nights that just hits differently. I mean, let's look at the first game first off. John, you attended the CHL game. Last week's CHL game on the Tuesday night. I mean, that atmosphere alone on that night was just electric. I mean, we'll talk about it, that goal, shall we say, and it's another one of those that goal moments. I mean, how phenomenal was that? Like 4 seconds left in the game. 4 seconds left in the game. Yeah. I mean, roof came off.
4.4 seconds left in the game. Absolutely fantastic goal. And look, we absolutely handed that German team their backsides. Look, it was a win's a win, and it was a shutout win at that. There's been a few European games where the atmosphere has just been completely different in that arena. I think back to games against Augsburg in the Continental Cup that didn't end up being a win, but what an atmosphere it was in that arena for that game. Absolutely unbelievable. And that was another one. So I was really, really glad that I made it over for that game. Just fantastic.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being there, because this was the one that I was getting a mini Door 14 hockey podcast. So I was somewhere in DC, Washington, and every so often I picked up my phone and there was a voice message from John and the lads giving me an update of what was going on in that period. It was well appreciated.
It was definitely a night that was. I think there's a photograph there somewhere. I think John, you might have the photograph. There was a photograph there somewhere of my now what has now become kind of I suppose my trademark in down around Door 14, around all of the people who sit around us, where my hood's ready to go, especially when it comes to penalties and overtime. And it was getting lower and lower over my head because I thought we're heading for penalties, it's going to happen, and then that goal went in, and I was just I was relieved in some ways as well, but it was just electric. Dave, last night's game, I would say pretty much was just was. Maybe there wasn't that same moment in terms of that kind of that powerful goal, last minute goal type on the line type thing. But the atmosphere last night as well was still just as electric. The response last night was just as strong. Would you say?
Oh yeah, and it was from end to end. It was I think a higher tempo. The Salzburg game was a fantastic. It was very clinical from the Giants. You know, they were staying out of the box. And they were taking their chances when they could. And then last night it was more of the same, but they ratcheted it up. The speed was more. We got more shots on goal. We outshot them, which was a massive surprise to me. and then taking the penalty, the power play when we did, and used it to its full advantage, with 2 goals on the same power play, which was interesting. And almost a third. There was a really solid chance for a third goal on that power play. It was a really good night. It was a bit jarring with the way the rule works, and even the both teams were a bit, after the restart, was like, okay, what's going on here? But obviously it worked out in our favor. Makes it definitely adds a different dynamic. Whether I'd want to see it in other competitions, I don't know. Whether it adds anything to the game, it's all up in the air. It's too early to make a decision like that. But we'll find out in the finals probably of the CHL whether it's actually useful or not, or if it adds anything to the game. Because when you get some of these big European powerhouses going head to head for silverware, and they come across a power play, they could easily put 2 or 3 goals in. So that'll be when we see whether it adds advantages or hinders.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, for us last night, it did definitely play in our favor, and it's still one of those ones where you said it's a bit jarring, when you've got that happening. And I would agree, because even in the crowd last night, you had some regular fans, maybe newer fans, maybe to the league as well, or maybe to the game, where I think there's a bit of confusion still going on. And I know the Giants have tried to combat this with having the explanation video right at the start of the game, so people kind of get an idea of, okay, don't forget there's a difference, in the CHL, and they try to explain it quite well. But there's still a group, and there's still a group of murmurs you hear whenever things happen. Like last night, it happened perfectly, was whenever the Giants scored and they were still, on the power play. There's a smattering of fans behind us being like, why hasn't it gone back to 5-on-5? And so it's kind of switching between regular season being, as soon as you score, the player comes back on again and that sort of thing. So it's about switching your brain around for the different competitions that are going on, especially when you're, whenever your other, league and your Challenge Cups are already in full swing, that you kind of have a game right in the middle where it changes up again. And I can see why maybe it is a bit jarring. Some people kind of maybe just get a bit confused and keeping on top of what things are happening, but it definitely worked in our favor last night, and there was a bit of, I suppose there was questions whenever we were talking about this during the off season, when they were talking about that changes to the rules, whether or not it would be would it make a difference. And last night it definitely did. It was good. It played in our favor last night. I know it has played against us, I think, as well in the past, and when we were away, I think in Sweden, I think that's what it was against us. But I suppose because we're talking about the CHL, I'll move over to a question we got in from Mark at Pen67. Pen67, sorry. He has asked the question I'm going to read out because it kind of fits in now instead of reading it out later on in our overtime section. He just wanted to know, a lot of Giants fans have been vocal in the past about preferring the Continental Cup over the CHL. Having had their most successful campaign in the CHL so far, where do you guys stand on the debate now? John, we'll come to you first.
Honestly, if you'd asked me that 2 weeks ago, it would be a very, very simple answer, and I would tell you I would go to the Continental Cup every single time, and that would be my choice. I still do subscribe to the school of thought that go into a competition that you expect to come out with something for it. Not saying this season that we haven't taken something from the CHL, because we definitely have, but the squad that we've had over the last 2 seasons, especially for how well they've done in the group stages of the CHL, I think that those teams walk away with the Continental Dinner Plate trophy. Like, that is, I think that's a certainty, unless we come up against a really hot opponent who puts a big shock or big surprise on the Giants. I think we take the Continental Cup. The CHL this season, though, 1 point separated us from being the first EIHL team to make it into the playoff stages of the competition. That's heartbreaking. And you look at the result against, was it Innsbruck? A 2-1 game, a 1-goal game. That's the difference. That loss is the difference. Even if that goes to an OT result, that presents a different story for the Giants. We probably at that point make the playoffs. I said last night on Twitter, for the first time actually, let's do this again next year. Let's go back to the CHL. I think we've proven a point. I think the restructuring of the CHL has been done in a way to make things very difficult on what they call the Challenger Leagues, which we are one of. Not one of the founding leagues of the CHL, so we don't even get guaranteed a space every year, but we got one this year. Hopefully, with the way that the Giants performed, we get one again this season for I think it's the league champions, isn't it? Get the CHL shot. So I would absolutely go again, and let's aim to make those playoffs.
Dave, we had a bit of a conversation just on. I know you can answer Mark's question. Obviously, your opinion on Continental versus CHL. So I want your opinion on that. But just to touch upon something that John said there, and we had a bit of a conversation about this last night. Going into this season, there was that thing at the start of the season around whether or not a UK team was going to get a spot. There was some questions around, whether or not the UK teams were strong enough to compete at the CHL level and whether or not they were going to give a spot. I mean, after this performances so far you've seen and the response, and I suppose the CHL's love for the Belfast Giants following even just like how their fans have reacted and stuff and the story that they've put together. I mean, what's your take?
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of sort of dirt in their eye after the home games. That Giants team pretty much was, at the start of the end of last season, it was pretty much up in the air what we were going to be getting post-season, whether we were going to go into Europe, whether it was going to be Continental Cup or CHL. And after that display, I don't think there's anybody can doubt that at least the Giants teams that have been there deserve to be there. And the level of the British ice hockey has definitely increased to a point where they're creeping closer and closer to the top, not necessarily the top teams in Europe, but definitely the other challenger leagues. The display we put against Bolzano, a team that we've played in the past in the Continental Cup, was unbelievable. And we 4-0, 2 shutouts in our home games. There's few of any of the teams can state those sort of numbers. We've finished above Tapparay Tampere in the group stages. It's a Finnish team, so that sort of puts it in the sort of levels that definitely British teams need to be added to that in a sort of more consistent basis. And I'm sort of with John. If you had asked me maybe a couple of seasons ago, I always loved the CHL. I love the idea of the CHL. I think it's a cracking one. From a fan's perspective, the Continental Cup is hard to beat. For that one event weekend, but from a competition and learning opportunity, the CHL is unrivaled.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. I think the CHL does provide an opportunity for to take on the best of the best in Europe. And while the Continental Cup is still a quality cup, and I'd say the structure of the Continental Cup and how it's put together and the fan experience from the Continental Cup is probably far outweighs the CHL kind of experience in some ways. I think year... Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
No, I was going to say, how would so we're coming off quite a successful CHL challenge there.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel that our opinions? Because I agree with you. Actually, I really think it's a good opportunity to step up and learn from it. But how do you think our feelings would change if it was a horrendous? And we've had it. Like if it was a horrendous, and we just lost like every single game and we're completely slaughtered. We'd be like, no, let's stay in our lane and go for the Continental Cup.
I get what you mean, 100%. I think if we were, as you say, if we were looking at a completely opposite direction and we hadn't won anything and we hadn't succeeded in won any games during this whole experience, would we be still being as strong and as positive about whether or not we should be in the CHL? Part of me still says yes, because we take on the opportunities and we even if people do see it as more like a prolonged preseason, which some people do take it as. It's still allowing us to go up against those big teams, get the experience, those big nights, experience those teams and those competitors, and kind of get the Giants starting to kind of push and forward and everything else. And while you still do that in the Continental Cup, I just think there's just a different, it's a different kettle of fish. You know, it's a different opportunity. When you're coming up against these big names and these big teams, and I still stand by, even if we are losing. Thankfully, we haven't lost significantly, like massively, and it's not like, you know, we did ourselves proud this year. But I would say I would still probably sitting on the point of where I would say I still think there's a point to take part in the CHL. Don't get me wrong, I love the Continental Cup, and the experiences I've had in the Continental Cup in terms of going away and being a fan in the Continental Cup was amazing in the couple of times we've done it. But there's definitely something about CHL nights which are just, again, it just
buzz.
transcends that. Yeah, buzz.
Yeah.
And I do think, and I was going to say this just before I answered your question, Aaron, was just that I think the way they structured the CHL this year in terms of changing the way the group standing stages are, and having, you know, the 5 different having the 6 games, but there's 5 different, you know, having the different teams each time, so you're not seeing, you know, that kind of thing where it was the different teams for each game. I think actually it's worked out. I think it's a lot better. I think it's worked out in a more versatile way, or it's better to see it that way than it was to get stuck in that group thing. I don't know anybody else to take on that, but I guess we'll see what happens.
I think it's done us great. I think we saw earlier from, I appreciate we were talking about it's still early season, but the Giants have hit the ground running. You know, got all the points from the season so far. As you said, it's a bit of a pre-season, to be fair, or an extended pre-season, but it's an extended pre-season against the top of the top. So it really challenges the guys, makes them gel as a team even further, and will help us in this league to come.
And also don't forget, you know, the CHL, for all of the people who think we shouldn't be in the CHL or whatever it is, don't forget that the CHL is also a massive draw for players. The Belfast Giants can sell the CHL as a tool when they're trying to bring players in. And so they're saying to players when they're trying to bring them in and they're talking through maybe contracts and whether or not they would be interested in coming to play for Belfast. You know, if you're saying to a player, you know, from North America and saying, you know, there's a competition which is kind of similar to the European Cup of football, you know, where you're going to be playing the best of the best in Europe. We have an opportunity here, you know, giving them this opportunity to go and visit Sweden, going to visit Finland, going and, you know, all these different Austria and all these different countries. You know, it's a bigger draw. You know, it's another little selling point to get those bigger names in and getting people to kind of sign on the dotted line, I suppose, as well. So we have to take that into consideration too as a selling point, from a business point of view as well for the Giants, I guess. And I'm just surmising that's probably something they used as a selling tool, but I would be surprised if they didn't. Hopefully that's answered Mark's question. Guys, what I'll do is I'm going to move on to the next. I'm going to sandwich it. So what I'm going to do is, John, I'm going to move on to you next, if that's okay. And your 2 stories both come from Guildford, and then I'll take the last story before we move on.
Sure. So we talked a little bit earlier on when we were talking about the Elite League tables and how the Challenge Cup's going, that Guildford have not had the hottest of starts. I think it's fair to say. That has meant that there have had to be roster changes in Guildford. So they, at the start of the week, I think, after the weekend games, they have announced the release of Petruzzi. So he is out. And just today, they have announced the signing of Austin Glover, a forward into that lineup. They are obviously looking for more goals, and hopefully that will lead to more points and more wins. Guys, this is interesting considering how early we are into the season. Now, the announcement from Guildford does state that their signing of Austin Glover is as a result of an injury to another player being placed on the IR. So this is not a suggestion that this is a direct replacement for Petruzzelli and his departure. So the implication there is that there is another signing probably still to come from Guildford. I talked earlier about Dundee perhaps being a team in crisis. Are Guildford feeling the pressure of an early lack of form?
Without a doubt, it's gone back to what I said, before period one, and then when we were going through the league standings. It's back to what I said. There has been pressure put in their shoulders from going into the season because of how well they performed last season, and even the statement that that Guildford did put out through Paul Dixon, and he said that nobody be surprised that we are not happy as a club with the way we have started. For whatever reason, the combination of guys we put together has not worked at all as we had anticipated, and we feel we have to make some changes. And as always the case with this horrific part of this business, the results of the team forced decisions that impact individuals, which meant they had to let Anthony go. I think it is. I think it's Flames making a statement straight away, saying we acknowledge that it's not what we wanted to start. We know that there's pressure on us in terms of having to perform. We've put together, we've set an expectation now with our fans in terms of bringing in fans from last year and probably getting a bigger gate this year based on what happened last year, and they need to keep performing. So I think I suppose taking an action on that quicker rather than later, sooner rather than later, is probably the best way to go.
Had anyone seen any highlights of this guy playing? Like, what singled out this particular player to get released?
I don't know. Maybe just not putting any points together. Maybe in the league, he's had eight league and cup starts, and he's got a pair of assists through that. So he's only had maybe just point production wasn't what they were looking for, and he's probably brought in for that exact reason. And he just hasn't performed in the way they were hoping for. I don't know.
Anthony makes a good point as well, that Guildford are probably still reeling from the pinching of Daniel Tedesco across massive. To the Giants. And yes, it's not a secret now that I had a chat with Ben O'Connor, and he had nothing but good things to say about Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, so far you're right, Anthony. Tedesco has definitely started off and performed. He's definitely a standout for us so far this season. I think there was a lot of people were concerned and worried about obviously departure of big names for Belfast. Conway, and we had, who else did we have?
Goody.
I'm thinking of Goody. Both of them leaving, and I think there was a big hole there. And people were like, "What is going to happen?" But Tedesco has stepped in, and so far has been production. Like, he's been great, to the point where I think last night he wasn't on the roster for last night. He was either benched or something happened last night where he wasn't available to play last night, and everyone was like, where is he? But what I would say, though, and I know this is kind of off topic, but what I would say is just about the Belfast Giants. Bringing in Tedesco is one thing, but Belfast Giants so far, and I know this at the weekend with Dave at the games, that game at the weekend, 6 goals, 6 different players scoring the 6 goals or whatever. I mean, we've got power. Definitely depth. Definitely. John, was there anything else on your story before I switch over to my story?
No, let's switch it back over.
Okay. I have one last story for this period, and it's just I suppose it's just a story that I wanted to bring up because I thought it was a really, really brilliant fan night. It was a really great...
Can we just talk about the little tour that Dave just gave us of his recording studio there?
For anybody who isn't watching whoever isn't watching the online version of the podcast, Dave's camera does tend to move a lot, so anywhere he goes, it just kind of tends to follow him in an arc.
Is anyone else just pure terrified of that camera? Like my camera is set up, like this area that everyone sees is fairly okay, fairly tidied. If you saw what was outside of this frame, it's a bomb.
Yeah.
Absolute bomb.
Coming into the recording tonight, I kind of did think it's a good thing people don't see what's over that side of the room now. It's just like chaos.
Between the lovely little overlays that you've put here, and like this jersey looks like it's here because it just fills a nice little space there, and the fact that it's a Door 14 jersey. No, this is like the tea making station for the shed here, so I'm really glad that this is all covered.
That's what you tune in for. You wanted people to tune in just to hear about the tours of our rooms and what's behind us.
Absolutely.
We've done this before.
Sorry, Marty, I didn't mean to butt in there.
No, it's okay.
I absolutely did, but
coming back to the last story, as I was mentioning in this period, it's the story that the clan last night. For anybody who didn't know, and I don't know why you wouldn't know because it was all over social media, as it rightly should be. Last night, the clan had a kids takeover event in the Brayhead Arena. and basically the whole thing was put together from start to finish, which was just, I thought, fantastic. So that from the kids designing the warm-up jerseys and everything else was put together, and they were wearing those. They had a guest announcer who was an 11-year-old who was the voice of the clan, Ethan Shearer, who if you haven't seen it, and there's video clips out there, if you haven't seen it so far, go out and check out one because it's brilliant. The kid is so good. He's like charisma and confidence, and it was just really good to see. We had another fan, 10-year-old Jessica Hill, who was the DJ for the guest DJ for the night, helping to generate the atmosphere, play the different bits of music. And one of the other things as well that was part and parcel of it was they had a guest as a guest coach, shall we say, in the back room, making the announcements and everything else. And I've completely lost his name here. I apologize for that. I had it a second ago, and now I've completely lost it. Apologies.
Pinstripes, isn't he?
Yes. If someone can find his name, that'd be brilliant because I would like to mention him. But the video footage that was put out of even just like that bits, the photographs and stuff put out there, and that bit and pieces of like I think his name was Hunter. He was the coach for the day.
Hunter Adair.
Yeah, he was the coach for the day, done the team warm-up. It was just fantastic. And I think what I'm trying to allude to is I kind of wanted to get your guys' opinions on this. I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the first event of its type where they've had the kids take over, let the kids do everything in relation to the night and every part of that. Have you seen any other team do that, or is it something you think should be replicated in a way, or do you think it's kind of like it's a clan thing, let the clan run with it, and should other teams maybe just kind of not try to replicate? What's your thoughts, Dave? Let's come to you first.
I think it's a cracking idea. Obviously, you don't want to jump on a bandwagon too quick, but definitely let it sit with the clan for a while. But as a concept, it's fantastic.
John, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely the same. In a few years' time, if my daughter got the chance to do any of that, I would just absolutely love it. Whether it was doing the announcing for the night, whether it was working the DJ booth, working on the bench, giving the pre-team team talk, anything like that. It's such an experience for them, and for a club at the top end of hockey in the UK to give kids like a chance like that is fantastic. So more of this, please.
Aaron, so obviously we had people, we had kids, as I explained, who were doing, coach for the night. We had the announcer for the night, but we also had kids on the night who were doing security. We had kids who were doing who were selling the merchandise stalls for people at box office. We had hospitality helpers. They also had youngsters helping to promote, shall we say, not sell, promote 50/50 tickets and shirts back. Not really sell them because of legal reasons, and obviously underage can't sell whatever it is, obviously entries to stuff. But one of the big things that they did as part of the kids takeover night was that young people under the age of 16 had entry for the price of £1 per ticket. I think it was overall, I think it's only positives coming out of that.
Of course, absolutely. I actually did a quick Google there, and it looks like the Buffalo Sabres do something similar as well. Actually, is there a charity link to it, or is it just an event for the sake of getting the kids in, having fun, getting them into hockey, or is there a charity behind it as well?
No, not last night's. No, as far as I know, there wasn't a specific charity that was linked into last night's game. Now that's a great idea. Maybe it's something that they could look at in terms of adding in that dynamic, that idea, I suppose. But no, last night's was just a family orientated organized event, and I think that's really all it was last night. But no matter as
you were listening out all the jobs, I was sitting there racking my brain trying to figure out what job would I let Theo do. I was like, do they still have the subway subcannon?
Well, that was the question. Well, that was the next question. That was the next question I was going to ask. And he's kind of both Aaron and John, you've both kind of alluded to. Obviously, you having kids yourselves, and Dave, you have two boys. If you could pick, if you think about your kids and their personalities, what job do you think? John, your hand's shot up there. What? Let's go with you first.
I'm pretty sure my 16-month-old can drive the Zamboni.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I didn't say anything about a Zamboni driver there, but okay, nice, great, yeah.
You need a license to drive a Zamboni?
I would say yes.
Only if you decide to take it out of the arena on the road to take it home.
You're thinking a subway cannon, maybe something.
I would be like subway cannon. That would be cool.
Dave,
you're like not be right in front of him at the time.
Dave, your two boys.
Xander probably would do really well with the DJ. He loves his music right now. Really does. I don't know. Harvey would probably have to be like security or something
Yeah.
because he has that sort of temper and stuff. So it'd be interesting.
You give Xander a book of stats, man, and he would be able, like, if he can rhyme off every single Pokemon and every single thing like that. You give him the book of stats, he would be the stats guy.
Well,
Definitely.
I don't know. I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying, Dave, but Xander obviously was at the game last night, the CHL game last night, and that was the first I'd seen him in a while. But he, like, as you were saying, singing, and he was singing his heart away last night at both in the game and even on the drive home, because I drove you both home last night, and even in the car on the way home, he was singing away. So yeah, I could see why you were meaning the DJ thing. But yeah,
he loves his music right now.
But Aaron, I think you're right as well. I've the amount of knowledge I've gained from Xander over the years about Pokemon from his in-depth encyclopedic knowledge is pretty impressive. That's great. That's it. I think that's all the stories for that. We do have some penalties to discuss and some DOPS decisions to discuss. So what we'll do is we will swing into our penalty box segment for period 1. Okay, our penalty box segment is just a roundup of DOPS decisions and hits and things that have caught our attention over the last 2 weeks. Some of these suspensions and some of these DOPS decisions that we'll chat about in this section will have already been served. Some of them have been served already. Some of them are still outstanding. But it's worth mentioning just to have a bit of quick chat about them, just because it's worth mentioning the fact that DOPS still exists, and kind of get your guys' thoughts. Let's look at the oldest ones. So the oldest ones being, I would say, the Inglis. Chris Inglis for Dundee Stars. The boarding call there, receiving a 1-game ban, and that was back on the 8th of the 10th. Guys, has everybody had a chance to watch all the videos for the DOPS decisions and everything that's been going on? Is that
Sure, I'm not watching it right as we talk.
I'll go for the English one.
Go ahead.
I am not surprised at the tariff on this one. If I'm totally honest, the 1 game is pretty standard from what we've come to expect from DOPS for these sort of calls. I'm not convinced by it though. I think it's more than 1 game. But like I say, there is a precedent that's been set, and everything seems to be very, very lax at the minute. I'm not entirely sure why that is. That looks like a fairly cut and dry one. The guy's driven into the boards in a vulnerable position, and I know we talked about it with I can't remember if it's one that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the Giants.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it next.
The Prince hit. There is a need for players to defend themselves from these hits, but the Fife Flyers player in this position is not in the same position that with Greg Prince, with the guy he hit. He has his back to Inglis the whole time, so for me, this should be a higher tariff. This is a 2 or 3 game, probably a 2 game. I think 1 game's too light, but let's say DOPS have set the precedent.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that, like, if we take both those incidents together, because they both happened, I think, on the same weekend, if I'm right in saying, they were kind of announced a couple of different day, a couple of different.
They were on the same day.
They were on the same day. Yeah, same call, both boarding. So Prince obviously was boarding, and it was against the Cardiff Devils there. It was against Chad Pietroni. I'm going to say that anyway. I'm going to say that.
Petronero.
There we go. Thank you so much. I mean, that one looked a bit different in that there was kind of an argument in that he does turn to face the boards during the play, but he knew the player was coming, so he did turn his back. Which did turn into which turned a legal hit into an illegal one. So there's kind of a bit of a conversation about that. I know the car.
No, be careful, because DOPS were very clear to say that does not make it turn what was a legal check into an illegal check. They've said it was an illegal check. The issue here is about Petronero knowing that Prince was coming, that he turned away from the hit.
Defended himself.
He presented the numbers for the hit, and Prince probably couldn't have aborted out of this hit at this point. I think, to be honest, and I realise that I'm taking up all the time on these two already, I'm going to let the other guys come in on it. I think Dops, in this instance, were forced into giving a ban on this one because of what they'd said with previous hits. I think the Inglis hit was a much more cut and dry boarding call. This one is incredibly borderline for me. Pichinero has to do a better job of protecting himself and not put himself in a vulnerable position where a hit like this can be laid. And the biggest problem I have with this one is actually what happened afterwards. I can't remember who it was on the Devil's side that decided to have a go, dropped the gloves, threw 3 or 4 punches to somebody's head, and all I got was a roughing call in the night. It's a nonsense. It was instigating. It wasn't even called as fighting. He should have had that. He should have also had unwilling combatant, and he probably should have had a Dops against him as well, which is just a nonsense. But here we go with Dops again. Sorry guys, I'll let the other two come in now.
Yeah, Dave, I mean, your thoughts? I mean, obviously 2 boarding calls, 2 very different ways that the boarding happened. Obviously, one has, obviously the Prince one obviously resulted in an injury and the play, which maybe compounded the reason why maybe the decision had been made as well, because it was maybe after the game, management maybe got involved, GMs and stuff got involved. I mean, what's your thoughts?
I disagree with the use of injury to lengthen a ban. The ban is for what technically happened on the ice, not you can have an injury on a perfectly legitimate check. We seen it actually last night. There was a player cleaned after a face-off, and he was down and out for a good 5 minutes. Doctor had to come out and see him, and there was clearly no illegal check, and there was actually very little contact. But the refs spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out if they were going to give something after the fact, based on the fact that there was an injury. That's not how it works. It's based on the game and how it's played and refed at the time, and then you have the ability to re-investigate it with the DOPS procedure, with a set of guidelines that they should follow.
Are you saying that they were looking to give someone a penalty because there was an injury, or
Exactly, yeah.
is it more that, right, there's an injury, let's make sure that we're certain that there was no foul play?
Doesn't matter. You can't re-ref. There was no penalty called at the time of the incident. You can't re-ref and add a penalty after just because of an injury. When it goes to the DOPS, unless it's the illegal check is to injure, as in somebody has went out of their way to injure somebody, there should be no additional games added just because there's an injury on the play. It should purely come down to how bad the technical ability of that check was, and we have an episode out called Consistently Inconsistent, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the one game, fair enough. It can be used as a marker, and I do agree that in this case, in both cases, that it needed something. Dobbs need to get better at giving us all the details again. Remember, for a while they give us a lot of information, step by step throughout the thing. A lot of it now is sort of lip service. They would have said, you got X for this and X for Y.
I think you're right for these 2 boarding calls. I think DOPS have purposely been quite guarded with the background information. When you look at the other 2 DOPS decisions that we're going to look at, there's a lot more information about them. They're very clear about the thought process. But I think this is a result. Yeah, it's a result of DOPS having backed themselves into a corner already with a couple of boarding calls and checks to the head, that sort of stuff. They've already set a little bit of a precedent, which, look, it pissed people off at the start of the season with the first couple of DOPS calls that were made, and they have to recover from that now. So what they'll be hoping for is that they're not looking at a boarding call for the next 2 or 3 weeks. People forget about it all, and all they're looking at is things like slashes.
push comes to the shove, just they put the work in on those boarding calls and give the information as it stands and stand by their decisions. If they don't give a ban, still release a video and say why they didn't give a ban.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
It's logical. They have to review them anyway. Still put out the details.
Guys, just John, you did mention there's 2 other decisions being adopted with maybe a bit more detail. Just quickly go through those as well before we move on to period 2. So this is Cardiff Devils forward Brandon Alderson receiving a 1-game suspension for slew-footing, and that was the game against the Coventry Blaze. The video did show the video was quite clear and quite transparent in relation to the fact that it was a slew-footing. I think that's personally, from watching it and seeing everything that's happening, I think it was an easy call. I think it was an easy decision to make. I think it was a clear
easy decision,
call.
But it's the wrong decision. It's the wrong decision from Dops. It's a stinking play. It's a professional foul. It's dangerous play. That's from behind and puts the guy at risk of smacking the back of his head off the ice, regardless of whether he's wearing a helmet.
What do you think
the
suspension should be? Think so?
That's a 3-game ban, at least.
Slew-footing is so dangerous, and we've seen it take. Was it? That's got in my head. I can't remember his name. We've seen it take, take players out for long periods of time, and it's not to say that you take the injury into account, but we know the only thing that it does, it takes the player off the play. It's not nobody wins the puck in those battles. You're taking the player down.
It might as well be a football play. It's not a hockey play in the slightest. It's a professional foul. It's an act with intent as well. It's someone is predetermined that they're going to make that sort of contact. That's stinking. And I hope somebody knocked the box off him after that. I don't think they did, because I don't think there was anything additional on that. But I hope the next time that those 2 teams play, somebody knocks his bag in, because that's stinking, and it's not a 1-game ban.
Have you just got more Scottish, or is it just me?
Might have done. just generally angrier.
Yeah. The last one then is Henbrand for the Nottingham Panthers versus the Dundee Stars. And that was a game this past weekend as well. And that was a slashing call, which has resulted in a 1-game ban. The reason for the supplementary discipline in this one is choice of contact Henbrand makes with Allen. This isn't a hockey play, regardless of whether Henbrand
because he nut shots him.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I'm glad you said it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the only way to describe it.
This is it's the same thing. How is this a 1-game ban? It's a professional. Yeah. It's a professional foul. It's not a hockey play. I don't think this is in the same vein as the slew foot. It should be a couple of games at least. This is a 1-game ban again, which I don't. It's not a 1-game ban. If you want this sort of play out of the game and you want it out of the Elite League, then punish it as such. It's just absolutely stinking.
Stinking?
Yeah, Anthony. Yeah, okay. Maybe you're right, Anthony.
Anthony is saying, for anybody who is not watching the podcast, Anthony Russell has said 1 game per 1 ball hit. That's a fair call. Guys,
is that not a rule? Surely that should be a rule already.
It should be, but it's not.
It's probably one of those dodgy unwritten DOPS rules.
I'm going to round us up there and going to cut us off for the penalty box, so we can get moved into our next segment, because we still have quite a few things to go through, including our period 3, which is kind of turned into a period just full of jerseys. So we will get there. So if you guys are happy enough, then we'll get stuck into our period 2 of hockey.
Hello. Welcome to period 2 of hockey. Forgot what I normally say when I start. So we'll be talking about hockey from everywhere in the globe, bar the UK. We're a bit mired by some negative pieces, which we'll get out of the way first, and then we'll go to yours, John, at the end, if that's good. So Marty, I'll hand it over to you to cover yours, and then we'll end on a nicer note.
Yeah, so I think the biggest story, obviously the NHL has just started over in North America. So the season has just started, and before the season started, there was a lot of conversations already going on in relation to the themed nights, as we talked about in a previous podcast. The decision was made by the NHL that themed nights and themed jerseys, etc., were no longer going to be the norm in the NHL. In fact, teams were being told that they, moving forward from this season on, there would be no themed jerseys allowed, pretty much at any point. So obviously, previously we've seen, Pride Nights, we've seen Black History Month, we've seen we've seen loads of different ones throughout the season. Some amazing jerseys as a result of those. But this kind of continues with the trend. So the NHL this week has come out and said that they have banned Pride tape from being used, which has set off a massive backlash, not just from fans, but also from players and ex-coaches as well. The story itself is that rainbow-colored Pride tape, which is a brand itself, which has been part of pro hockey for about the last 7 years anyway, was the symbol of welcome and inclusion within NHL, especially as part of their Hockey is for All campaign, which they had, which pretty much now we kind of know is kind of went by the wayside. And there's a thing I'm going to read out from Brian Burke in a few minutes, which kind of alludes to that. But the NHL have come out and said it is now banning the athletic tape, which has sparked a massive bit of backlash. We've had players themselves coming out and saying, I'll use the tape if I want to, I'll buy it myself if I have to. That was Scott Langton from the Philadelphia Flyers who said that following the announcement that was made. We obviously know that a number of teams last year had announced that had different players for different reasons not taking part in the LGBTQ plus celebrations that were going on, and so this just kind of expands on that when the NHL did announce this, that basically that it wouldn't go on any further. What did come out of that was, which was an interesting one, was that Brian Burke, who everyone knows from previous GMs for different various teams, quite an outspoken member of the NHL boards and everything else. He put out on his X or Twitter, he put out, the decision has stripped clubs of powerful community outreach tool and removed meaningful support for special initiatives, all to protect a select few who do not want to answer any questions about their choices. I hope that NHL recognizes, in order to remain a leader in the community, I suppose, for this. He goes on to say that he's deeply disappointed in the NHL's decision to ban support for community causes. He thinks that over the last 35 years or so, in the different NHL markets, it's done massive good things for different communities and organizations, and it should continue to do so. And by shipping this back means that their NHL's impact and having a positive impact in different communities has basically been obliterated. The NHL has been an enthusiastic and valuable supporter of different causes and groups. To name a few, was the Indigenous people, first responders, military heroes, cancer survivors, etc., etc. And by having this new league-wide policy, strips all of those important things happening and visibility for people who might need basically more information, that message being put out. The decision doesn't help the game, doesn't grow the game, doesn't make the fans feel more welcomed. In fact, it makes people feel more excluded than before. I mean, he's got massive points. And I know what people will say, all it is a colourful tape, but it's a massive point. It's another point where the NHL have basically stepped in and said pretty much, don't say gay, almost, is what people have been putting out. Would you agree? Is it another just stance where they're just stamping even further down to say, any idea of anything you guys had in terms of, okay, you can't have themed jerseys, but we're not having anything? It's a
nonsense. The league has made a move because a small number of players were incredibly vocal about not participating in things like Pride Night. And let's be honest, the entire special jerseys, one-offs, the occasion jerseys, whatever, it's a decision that's entirely based around pride. Whether or not the NHL wants to accept it or not, it is entirely based around pride. Otherwise, why would they go after Pride tape as well? It's a joke. So to protect a small number of outspoken people, they have removed the choice from other people to show their support. So they're trying to protect some and protect their freedom of expression to not support a cause by eliminating the right and the freedom of expression and the freedom of speech of the vast majority to show support. And it's completely short-sighted, and it's a complete and utter nonsense. And honestly, I hope this is the nail that hangs Bettman. and the end of his career in his position at the minute. I think it's an absolute nonsense that as commissioner he's allowed this decision to be made. I think it's very, very clear where his thoughts lie on it, because this decision has been made through the NHL. It's just a joke. Don't agree
I
with
mean,
it.
Brian Burke, Dave, Aaron, Brian Burke isn't the only one to have come out and made his stance. He is saying that it's a setback for the NHL, but you've got Calgary defenseman Rasmus Anderson, who said repeatedly that it sucks that the thing itself was something that was close to his heart, something he loves to support. It's a sensitive subject for some people. He just doesn't understand why it can't still be kind of something that's out there. You have Toronto Maple Leafs defenseman Morgan Riley saying that it's unfortunate. Whatever statement was made is fine. As players, we're going to continue to offer support and be allies as best we can, even though we can't do that publicly. We also have one of the prospects for Nashville, who's an openly gay hockey player, who's Luke Prokop. And he has said that, he's disappointed to see that some teams have cancelled their Pride Nights. Pride Nights are an essential step forward, foster great acceptance and understanding in hockey. And even, if we look at it from a massive point of view of where the Pride tape came from, back, I think it was as early as 2015, 2000 or whatever it was. And I think it was the Oilers who were a massive part in playing in that and saying that one of the big reasons why we're supporting it is to kind of help young people who maybe otherwise would quit playing hockey because of facing homophobia or discrimination. I mean, what's your thoughts, Dave, in terms of, this step? Would you agree it's a step backwards?
Oh, yeah. It's not just a step back. It's a giant leap backwards. It's hockey in the NHL in particular in North America was probably the most progressive of the sports leagues and prided itself on the inclusion of everybody and put an awful lot of work. There's years, decades of work to make that a reality, and has been undone in one fell swoop. And even if you take out Pride, they've taken away Black History Month, so disenfranchising black players, making them feel less included. They've taken away funding for cancer research. They've taken away funding for veterans. They've taken away local funding for different charities. It's not that they've taken this hammer to the league's generosity because of a few set of individuals, and have damaged and probably irreparably damaged the NHL's reputation going forward. I can't see the changes to a change that will make as much of an improvement as this has damaged the league. There will be a lot of fans who will be turned off from watching it, because based on this stance, they have decided to validate decisions that were controversial to start with, to validate the people's decisions not to take part. And I was the devil's advocate in the room last season, when you're saying individuals have the right to say no, which is perfectly acceptable, especially in the United States. The entire country is based around that fact. There was no reason to make a draconian statement to push this whole thing away because of individuals' decisions not to take part. Those individuals always had that right and have always been able to use that right. This has just changed that. This has taken away that right for the people who wanted to support those individuals.
That's what I don't get about this tape bit, because going on by what you're saying about the jerseys, okay, then you're not forcing people to wear the jerseys. Then you're not forcing players to wear the jerseys. The tape, there was no one forcing players to put the rainbow tape on their sticks. So what, I don't understand why remove it then. It's just an option. If the player wants to show support to it, then that's cool. And as you say, it's only on Pride tape. It's not. That's the only thing they've mentioned here. They haven't mentioned any other color of tape.
There's very few other charity-based tapes out there.
The only other
Pride
one
is definitely
the only one I can think of is the one for the cancer.
the purple.
What if they wanted to put yellow and blue for for Ukraine, for example? What
Probably
if they
not
wanted
allowed.
to do that?
Nope. No, because
but
they're making
I'm saying
a
that
statement.
they've made a statement for Pride, but they haven't mentioned anything else there.
Yeah, that's because the Pride, the rainbow tape is actually a brand.
Right. Okay.
It's a particular brand that raises that raises money for the Pride charities. There is, as Marty was saying, there's probably only one other that I'm aware of, which is the violet purple tape. But I think that was made by the NHL, which means they're probably just going to stop selling it.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think I just think it's such an unfortunate thing, as you guys have already alluded to, just to kind of get my 2 cents into it. I think it's just an unfortunate thing that, because of 1 or 2 players last year who made a personal decision, which was respected at the time. People were maybe just a bit like, well, why is that? But, let's be honest, it was respected at the time. People were kind of like, okay, well, you have the rights to do that, and you have and that was respected. But go from having individuals here and there, not even all teams. It wasn't even a full, it wasn't even the whole teams right across the league that had it happen. It was only like dribs and drabs of 1 odd players from the odd team here across the whole league. But for them to go, right, well, if it offended 1 or team, maybe we should just stop doing it completely. And I think it's just to have a blanket ban on all themes. It just seems to be, backward thoughts.
Do they not do the hockey is for everyone anymore? Because I can remember sitting in John's apartment, like whenever that apartment was in Newton Abbey, and I remember recording a podcast where we were talking about the hockey is for everyone and all the initiatives that they were doing. Now, fair enough, that's years ago.
But the point is that with the decision they've made, with the decision that they've made, it's patently not for everyone anymore.
But they've also done away with that program.
I mean, did they from last year? Was that last year? The last year of it?
I think it was last year. Yeah.
It's baffling. And I'm sure by the end of the season, I'm sure if enough teams are putting their thoughts and opinions out on it, and enough players are saying things on it, it'll be interesting to see if there's any kind of, I suppose, comeback that the NHL will kind of feel a bit forced to have to maybe change things again come next season. We'll wait with bated breath and see.
It's your period, Dave.
Yeah, I was going to say. So I think you have 1 more about the draft. Do you like to cover, Marty? Or
I do indeed. I have 1 more, and that's just on the announcement that kind of, the story that kind of broke today. We're quite late on today, actually. I think it was probably about midday today. There's some murmurs going on, which has kind of gathered pace throughout the afternoon and throughout the evening. There was a memo or a official notification that went out to the NHL teams across the whole league, in which the NHL have asked for teams' opinions around the idea of decentralizing the draft from potentially 2025 with a possibility for it to happen next year, 2024. The idea that the NHL want to kind of move forward with is more of a NFL kind of NBA kind of style, where the teams themselves the clubs themselves would stay at home, so they wouldn't actually be in the room physically at a table. Instead, they'd be on their phones and they'd be sitting somewhere outside of the big arena where all the players are put together, and making decisions. I suppose if you've ever seen like how the NFL and the NBA style works in terms of, you've got people on like a buy, sell kind of style on the phone, like, no, I'm trading this and trading that, that's the kind of idea where they have the players then announced at that point and the players don't find out, all this kind of murmuring going on. So they want to have an idea of moving to that kind of style from 2025 at the very least. Not surprisingly, fans have responded straight away to say that it's probably the worst idea the NHL have come up with. People have said that they like the fact that the NHL draft format is different from the NFL and the NBA style. People think that it's more dramatic having the teams together in the one room, having proximity, having management teams that are together, having conversations between each other, and those things that are happening on the floor as it goes along kind of adds to the kind of environment of what it is, and it inspires different trades and different things happening. Just get your thoughts on this. I know it's early days, and maybe this story will maybe kind of gather pace, and we'll find out more come our next episode. Obviously, it's fresh and new today, but Dave, I mean, your take on this? Do you think the NHL and the draft that they currently have works? Do you think there's any point really to switch over? Or do you think this is more of the NHL just saying we kind of want to go with the mainstream other leagues and just kind of do a similar format?
It's interesting because I'm really certain the NHL used to be like that. Just from documentaries and stuff I've watched, and docudramas I've watched. The Gordie Howe drama whenever his kids were drafted into the World Hockey League. it was all done cloak and dagger under the table from like a hotel, separate from the main draft. So I'm wondering why they've decided to go with it. Seems a bit strange. Seems a bit of a backward step, maybe. Or are they thinking that having the teams not there, they might get more drama out of the draft? Might get more people, being less predictable. Because it's very predictable. You usually can tell who's taking who up at least round 10 sort of thing. You can usually get a good idea for the first 10. Sorry, even you have a good idea who's going where. It's very rare that we get a big change up, but hey ho, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if it'll be beneficial or not, but if they're trying to change it, maybe they're trying to get more people in the room to watch it, so they're freeing up more seats or something. I don't know.
I'll be honest, the draft is not something that I watched anyway. I'm not that way inclined. I'll take an interest in who the Nashville signs, but to be totally honest, unless we're in top 5, I really don't care. I'll see how it all comes out after training camp and see what team we actually look like we're going to put out. The draft doesn't really mean anything to me in particular. I think probably what the NHL are looking for here is to boost the platform of the draft, because I think out of the NFL, the NBA and the NHL, like the NHL draft is the poor second cousin that far few people care about. So they're probably just looking to add, whether or not this actually happens, just by having the conversation and putting that out there, they've already generated a little bit more buzz about what this year's draft will look like, or even what next year's draft will look like if these changes come in for the 25 draft, say. I think that's all they're doing. I don't think it's going to have any massive impact on how the draft unfolds, to be totally honest. But there will be diehards who are all about their fantasy hockey, and that's where the drafts have a big impact, because as soon as their team drafts someone, they're already looking at the picks for next year for the fantasy hockey leagues.
I mean, the draft itself, I mean, it's something I would watch a bit of. And an answer, I think, Fuzz asked the question there, is the draft not over 2 nights, only then top 50 or so get drafted on the first night? It's right that like it is over 2 nights, and I usually tend to watch the first night more of it, in terms of the first first round picks anyway for each of the teams. I usually try to focus on those ones more. After that, I kind of, as you said, John, I kind of then just wait and see what comes out, and because just so much change after that point. I enjoy it, but as someone else made a big point, is that it brings in, because they do the draft and they pick a city that hosts the draft each year, it brings in massive revenue for the city as well, because they have people coming in and they have it's a massive revenue generator. So if you think about like how that's going to impact cities as well, it's an interesting way to look at it too from a business point of view.
That's what I was going for when I was reading through it. That's the tweet that I honed in on. But the only thing about the tweets that are here is that it's all the fans saying that they want it. I haven't got any tweets about, oh, this is a great decision, we prefer it that way.
As I say, the story itself is so fresh. Like, I mean, the story, I was honestly reading the story as it broke, just before I was finishing work, just over about 3 hours ago now, 3 or 4 hours ago. It was about 3 hours ago, yeah. And I mean, it's a fresh story. So I think over the next 24 hours, 48 hours, we'll see more responses from I suppose from GMs, teams, and from players alike. So from players maybe who have been drafted and have been in that experience of the draft, those draft round picks and stuff, maybe getting their personal experience of what they thought of the whole situation and the whole scenarios. So I'm sure that will all expand over the next 24 or 48 hours anyway. So I say,
and it's a different host city each year,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Because I think the Nashville hosted this year, and I think that they put up a banner to say we were the host nation or the host state. I don't remember. Can't remember.
They may have put up that they were the host nation. I didn't realize that Nashville was trying to secede from the United States.
Clearly, yes, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Thanks for picking up on that. Okay, that's my story, Dave. Thanks.
Awesome. Not a problem. And then over to John to finish us off.
So this was just a really quick one. I thought it was well worth mentioning. That over in Kalamazoo, a team that we know quite well from their theme nights, and their colourful ice that they're incredibly well known for. They made a little bit of history. Not the first team to do this, but the first team in nearly 2 decades to do this. They just won an ECHL pre-season game with a woman in nets. Maria Fujimagari took the win and took an overtime win, coming in the third period, facing 14 shots and leading, backstopping the team to an overtime win. 29-year-old, 5'11" netminder, side of PTO with Kalamazoo last month, coming in professionally from Sweden for AIK, and she's got some CWHL and PHF experience as well. But she is the first woman since the 1993-94 season to win an ECHL game in nets. So just thought that was well worth a mention, and congratulations to her, and well done to Kalamazoo for yet again showing how progressive a hockey team can be.
Remind us what they did to the ice, John.
So Kalamazoo are well known for having their rainbow ice, and they also last season I think they coloured. What did they do? They coloured their ice like a single block colour for a charity night. I just can't off the top of my head remember what colour it was. Was it like? Did they have the NHL '94 night?
I don't remember, but I remember were they the ones that coloured?
Were they the ones that coloured their ice like the sort of sky blue colour like you got in NHL '94?
They did have a sky blue. Yeah, they did
something like that.
Yeah, and they also had nights where they've had the pink, where they've had just pink for the charity, for cancer research or cancer charities. They've had a pink night where they've had, like, it was completely just like flooded pink. And I think did they also have red? Did they also have red ice last year for Valentine's Day as a Valentine's theme so as well or something? Yeah, they're well known for both putting together their themed jerseys as well as themed ice. So yeah.
I'm actually Google imaging it right now. There's a really cool one where they literally look like they've just let kids go wild and draw on it. Like it's a big doodle pad, like with like teddy bears and stars and all that kind of stuff drawn over it. That's really cool.
Yeah, they did.
See, this is why I like having Anthony in the audience, because he just confirms stuff for us or corrects us. So he's confirming the Valentine's thing as well.
Amazing having somebody who's a hell of a lot more knowledgeable than we are that's listening.
It's nice having a professional on the list.
One thing I'd say before Dave, before you finish off before you finish off this period, the one thing I just wanted to mention just about this story was, I think we did talk about obviously the progression that we've seen over the last probably over the last year or two in the women's game, and we did say, I think there was a story put out last year where there was a conversation about more like when rather than if. Lady ice hockey players be coming into the sport in terms of getting the chance to step up. And I just think that we've seen, obviously, at the All-Stars game, we've seen different aspects of it last year. We've got this occasion now where we've seen, even though it was preseason, it's a step forward, and it's good to see that that's happening. I think it's just, again, another one of those important stepping stones to kind of hope that in the future come, hopefully not too distant future, that we're seeing a game starting with a female player playing within the men's league as well. So we'll wait and see.
Yep, and that's a better way to end on the episode than we started the period. So I think that's everything for period 2. So I will hand it over to period 3.
Period 3 is our general Knocky
news.
Knocky news is normally where we put in everything and everything else that doesn't fit neatly into period 1 or 2. However, this podcast around, it is the Jersey special. And I don't mean New Jersey, sorry Fuzz, I mean the ones that you wear.
The ones we care about.
Marty, I don't know how you want to do this, because I have seen somewhere in the background that you have done some prep on this, but I'm not sure just how much prep you've done.
Yeah. Give me a second. Hang on. Let me just sum up. So we're going to start off. Obviously, I'm just going to say, I'm going to allude with, let's start off easy with the fact that, like, it's Halloween coming up in the next, what is it, like a week away? Is it just over a week away?
Week and a half.
Yeah, week and a half. So Halloween is coming up. So let's start with the Halloween jerseys that have been released so far. Last episode that we recorded, Dundee were the only team to have released a Halloween themed jersey, which was the Freddy Krueger one, if I'm correct.
Yep.
The Steelers literally the day after we recorded the podcast released theirs, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it. So we're going to start off with the Steelers. So we'll start off with the Halloween themed ones, and then we'll move on to the other two jerseys that we want to talk about. One being the Anaheim Ducks, and the other one being the Belfast Giants one that was released that was announced yesterday. So let's start off with that. And I think if I click this button,
You're fancy.
Thanks. Yeah. So for anybody who's not watching, I can now share it on the screen and people can see what we're talking about.
For anyone who's not watching, you need to go and watch.
Yeah. Go have a look yourself at these jerseys. Let's start with the Sheffield Steelers one. As I say, this one was released just after we done our last recording. I think Dave, you were the first one to respond when you seen this on our chat, and you were saying it was so uninspiring. Do you still stand by that?
Oh yeah, it just looks like a dirty Steelers jersey. And I mean it's actually dirty, not just that it's a Steelers jersey.
Dirty Steelers.
Let's go with can someone give me anything like a positive that they like about it? Anybody?
I like that the number looks like it's steel. Like the actual like logo, the Sheffield Steelers
Actually,
logo is alternate. It looks steel-ish.
Do you know what? The man's not wrong. It's the only Steelers jersey that has anything to do with their actual name.
Yeah.
I like
that.
It's orange. I like orange.
I think a bit of blood splatter, orange, and a bit of steel-looking 3D kind of look to it.
Definitely has MS Paint, clip art sort of style thing going on with it. But,
That's what it is. The Sheffield Windows number looks like Microsoft clip art. Perfect. Yes.
What did she say is the Steelers have jumped on this year as well as being one of the teams that you can purchase said jerseys. So that is that you can purchase them for the price of £55 if you would like. I would kind of agree. I think when you look at some of the other ones that we're going to show now, and we even look back at some of the ones that even the ones Steelers did last year, I think it doesn't seem as it's not as inspiring as what they've maybe done before, and it's not maybe they haven't maybe pushed the boat out as maybe some have. And in saying that, let's quickly look at the next one which we have on up for grabs. I think we're going to move over to MK Lightning for the next one, which is this one here. So the MK Lightning one, it's kind of what they're doing with this one is that they've kind of created that bone skeleton kind of thing in the different rips of it, which is kind of similar to kind of maybe ones that we've seen last year. I think actually the Steelers had one slightly similar, I would say, last year. But again, maybe pushing the board out a bit more, being a bit more creative with their jersey. What do you guys make of this one from MK?
It's better.
Okay.
It's better. I'm not sure of the ghosting color. Like, I don't know the scientific sides behind it, but I didn't think Ghost had bones.
Is it ghosts?
Do you see ghosts?
Well, no. I mean, like it's like ghosty white, the jersey itself, and then it's got bones. Yeah, I know it's grey, but still, to my eye, it looks like a ghost with bones.
I just thought it was
what I'm saying.
I just thought it was Lightning's kind of color.
No, their colours are they're like white and blue, are they not?
No, but did not change more to a grey color whenever they done the rebrand with the new MK Lightning logo and everything? Was it not like a change the colors as well?
Honestly, I'm going to give it like 3 minutes, and Anthony. I'm going to give it 3 minutes, and Anthony's going to tell us anyway. But generally, it's better than the Steelers. I'm still not a massive fan.
Okay. We're going to switch across up to Glasgow. We're going to look up there. They released 2 jerseys today. We had a bit of a conversation with this on our group chat. So the first one is their warm-up jerseys, which is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Ghostbusters themed. I know, Dave, your thoughts on it were...
I like it.
Reasons being, please. Can you give me a bit more detail?
Stupid gold logo in the middle. They could have done something with it. Like, I don't know. I know it's their sponsor, but come on, they've done something better than that.
Yeah, I've got to agree with Dave on this one. It suffers with that logo being on there and being like bright gold. Otherwise, I actually quite like the jersey. I like the design. I totally get what they're going for here, as opposed to the Milton Keynes one. But yeah, that logo. I do like what they've done with the clan logo. This is I think the best use of the new clan logo since they brought it round. However, I do like on social media, Thomas Brownlee had the best response to this, and he's like, absolutely love this logo redesign. Ban the clan.
Well, actually, in mentioning
Clan
that,
busters.
what I should say in that, some of the clan fans themselves, I did read in the comments, some clan fans themselves were asking what was the thought process in the design of the cross through the clan logo, because people were asking, why are we crossing off our own logo? What's the purpose of this? And I kind of do agree. I'm kind of like, what was the purpose of crossing out their own logo? Changing the colors fine, but why did they cross it out? I don't really understand. Either.
Because it's the Ghostbusters.
It's the Ghostbusters
symbol.
Thing. Yeah,
it's the Ghostbusters
come on.
symbol. Is the ghost
Yeah.
is the ghost with the cross through it? So that's what they've done.
Yeah,
It's Clan
I mean, it
Busters.
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't work in this context. Let's be totally honest.
It doesn't work at the. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't. And we'll get into the other jersey. So the other jersey. Sorry, Aaron, you were going to say something there, and I completely cut you off.
I was going. I have to wait until we see the other jersey to make my comment because
I'll switch over to the other one. So the other one is their game. It's going to be their game jersey, which they have taken a variation of their Ghostbusters uniforms. Dave, hold your tongue for a second. They're taking the Ghostbusters uniform, and they have. They've assured fans, because it hasn't been seen yet, they have assured fans that there is a proton pack design on the back of the jersey. Now, let's we are all four panelists, all four of us on this podcast are all pretty nerdy. We're all pretty much big fans of Ghostbusters. We're pretty much fans of any kind of pop nerd culture. Dave, we'll come to you first.
Wrong color.
Not for Ghostbusters 2. We did this.
The
Ghostbusters,
Ghostbusters 2 is navy. I can go get the
It's-
pictures. I can go get the pictures again.
No, it's
It's not.
the photo you showed had a filter on it. It's like a dark grey,
Not
dark
it's navy.
grey. That's
Tan in
perfect.
one,
That
navy
is-
in the second one. Now,
That's
my
perfect.
my opinion did go up when I heard the proton pack was there, but personally think it's, I don't know, they've didn't even bother googling Ghostbusters uniform before doing it.
We're going to come on to another Ghostbusters uniform in a second, but let's stick with this one just for a minute. Dave, we know your thoughts. John, you kind of applauded when it came on. You're a big fan. You like?
Big fan. And I said if I wasn't away in England while they are playing in these, I would have gone to Glasgow and tried my hand at getting one of these. That being said, they're doing like a shirt off the back thing for the warm up, the Stay Puft jerseys. These, however, are being auctioned off, and I have been to a few jersey auctions. I am not rich enough for those events.
No.
So I'll give it about 3 years until someone regrets having spent all that money, and then I'll get one on Facebook Marketplace.
Aaron, let's get your thoughts before I give my 2 cents worth.
I really like it, and if they don't have a portion of or when they're on the ice, that some of the players are in the Stay Puft jersey and some of the players are in the Ghostbusters jerseys, I'll be very disappointed.
That should happen at some point. Oh my god, that should happen.
No, there should be
brilliant
One
one.
of the two different teams.
There should be one. A netminder should be in the Stay Puft.
I think they should put. I think what they should do is they should put Clangus into a Stay Puft jersey, and then get him to skate around and get the players to chase him. I think that's the genius move. I think it's a great idea.
That's exactly.
No, Clangus is surely. We're getting a bit niche and a bit geek here, but surely Clangus would be more like one of the gatekeepers.
Yeah, okay. Let's stick to the fact that it's jerseys.
If Sigourney Weaver bursts out and asks, "Are you Zool?" then I'm totally sold.
What I would say is I really like the concept of the jerseys. I think what I like about it is it's bold. It's stepping out there and doing something different with the jersey, which I really like. And I think if it's kind of, I think what they're doing, both Dundee so far and Glasgow are doing, is I think they're definitely playing on the response that Manchester had last year from the Stranger Things design jersey that they had. And I definitely think that they have went down the route of let's go with what worked for Manchester and do something similar. And I like it when they go bold and they do this sorts of things. So I'm all for it. I'm a big fan, big fan. Let's have a quick look at what Dave said is a good example of a Ghostbusters jersey. And this is an example of that. Dave, where did this come from again? Who was this again?
Was Wichita Comets?
Comets. That is Fort Wayne Comets in the ECHL. They're going to host the Toledo Walleye for a spectacular minor league hockey game. And this is
Dave,
their version.
You're only saying that because it's a slight, maybe a slightly.
Is the right color?
Just because it's the color.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not. This is not the right color at all. And if your argument about the Clan Busters is a thing, they've done exactly the same thing.
I don't mind. I actually like the idea. I think I'm going to take the piss out of it, but it does that to their logo. But no, it's because it's the right color.
It's too plain. It's too plain, and there's no proton pack. It's a terrible, terrible jersey.
I was just about to say that. Where's the proton pack? I think the fact that the Glasgow went all in. They've got the proton pack on the back. I think it's.
Yeah, but they didn't even bother googling what color the uniform was.
But they did get slimed. So Slimers obviously got to them there. So that's a little bit of a bonus. But no, I prefer the Glasgow's jerseys.
Glasgow didn't even get a shout out from Ghostbusters.com, which is where this came from.
Not yet.
I'm gonna do
wrong color.
the last Halloween jersey in the selection that we have. I'm sure there's a couple of other teams will bring out their Halloween jerseys tomorrow, I bet you, after this podcast being recorded. But let's go with the last one that we have, and that's from the Coventry Blaze. Anybody want to take lead on their thoughts on this one?
Looks like every Coventry Blaze Halloween jersey ever released.
I quite like it.
What do you like about it?
I just like the colours. I think it's a quite eye-catching jersey, the colour-wise. Because they've used colours that aren't part of their standard setup, and they got pumpkins orange instead of purple.
Okay, yeah. Aaron, you were going to say something there?
Go back to the Glasgow jersey. I like it because it's a bit creative. It's a bit geeky as well. This, to me, just looks like going on to not clip art, but going online. Give me an image to do with Halloween, and I'll stick it on my jersey.
I agree with you. That's kind of my thoughts. My kind of thoughts were, as I mentioned already, I like the Glasgow and the Dundee one because they kind of, they kind of went mainstream, kind of, pop culture.
Like
and kind of went straight in. Dundee's is brilliant. I like those, and I think this is, again, as you kind of said, it kind of feels like it's just like clip art, stick and paste, which I think a couple of other teams will do the same. I think the Belfast Giants will do another one, which will be just like bones or something, bats and ghosted. And I think it'll be something similar to like last year's. And I like the fact that some of them went. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they'll surprise us after what has been which has been a very, I suppose, an argumentative variation of the when everybody's seen them live, the Lederhosen jerseys, which has hit the news. Some people love them, some people hate them. It's very Marmite. I love them, and I know a lot of people didn't like them, but I think if the Giants could go with something extreme for their Halloween one as well, I think they'd be keeping going with that tradition. Well, but I have a feeling it'll be.
You, Marty, had a discussion about what the Giants should do because they're playing Dundee, and we should do a Freddy versus Jason.
Should do a Freddy versus Jason. Get Dundee to bring their jerseys over. We should have ours. Should be Freddy versus totally, but they're never going to do that. But they should 100% agree. Should do that.
Freddy versus Jason's good. I was trying to think, is it like, does Game of Thrones count? Could it be like the Night's Watch or something like that themed, or like a White Walker themed, just to make it a bit more fun?
So it's a winter theme then.
A winter theme.
Winter theme. Anthony has just sent us through a message to say stuck a link to the Bees one in the Door 14 Twitter. I'll have a look at that and I'll see if I can get it up before the end of this segment. Guys, the next one I'm going to go on to is we're going to take us back. It's going to take us away from Halloween, and we're just going to look at what I think is the most beautiful jersey I have seen in a long time, and it's switching over to NHL, and that was the Anaheim Ducks putting out their 30th anniversary Ducks jersey. What do you guys think of this?
Fantastic.
You're missing out the best. You're missing out the best part, though. You're not able to show the video.
No, I didn't put the video in.
The video is amazing. You have to what? The duck doing the drum roll?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head
That's
what
amazing.
they called that. What did they call that duck again?
Oh my god, it's amazing. It's Ben. Is it? Oh, hold on.
I'm getting it out. Ben Afquack.
Ben Afquack.
Ben Affleck is back. Apparently that was a thing before. I had absolutely no idea. But yeah, the duck doing the drum is absolutely fantastic. But on these jerseys, I'm such a massive fan of the old school Mighty Ducks. I mean, anyone who grew up with the movie is a fan of this over the stylized Anaheim Ducks, the D, and what they do with that team now. The Disney design studio know exactly what they're doing, and going back to Wild Wing is just amazing. I love anything that's got Wild Wing on it, and these jerseys are fantastic. It takes you straight back to the movies, and the fact that they've put, if you look at the little detail on the collar on the jersey, the fact that it says Mighty. So they've gone back and they're owning, for so many years, this team avoided using the phrase Mighty Ducks because they tried to get away from that Disney side. And yes, there were probably legal issues around it as well. But going back and owning that is so good, and doing it for the 30th anniversary is just fantastic. And the colour is just perfect. I love that deep purple. It's just amazing.
When is the jersey out yet, or has it just been announced?
Oh no, it's been out. They've played in it. They've had it out, and it's been played, and you can buy it. It might be sitting in my basket already to potentially purchase one from a website that I use for purchasing jerseys. So if anybody wants to get it, I'm just waiting.
If anybody wants to get it, I told you guys, I'm just waiting for it to appear in TK Maxx, because over the last few months, for some reason, TK Maxx are just doing nothing but selling Ducks merch. So at some point, this is going to turn up in TK Maxx.
One last jersey, while I try to get the other one up that Anthony had sent us, but one last jersey, and this is looking forward to another part of the year, which is later in this year, which is Christmas time. The Belfast Giants have already released their Christmas jersey for 2023 in the hope that people will be able to order them this coming weekend, and I think before a certain date in October, so that they can get them for the Christmas games. And that is this one. Thoughts and opinions? John, let's go with you first.
Uninspired. I don't know. It's boring. It's got candy canes on it, and it's got snowflakes. I don't know. Just massively uninspired.
Why isn't it Ghostbuster themed?
Why isn't it Nightmare Before Christmas? Why isn't it? Why is it not Turbo Man? Like Jingle All the Way. Like, there are so many things that you can do around Christmas.
You have to explain it. It doesn't work, man. Why is the Turbo Man? Jingle all the way.
But even still, like, okay, maybe bad example there, but do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many like classic Christmas things. Like, they haven't even put a hat on Finn. They haven't put a beard on Finn. Like, they just haven't done anything. I'm just avoiding what you said there. There's nothing.
Yeah, could have had a wee Christmas hat on the logo.
Yeah, there's nothing interesting, nothing original. It's just thrown in design elements into a rant. Like, even AI would do a better job of that, if I'm totally honest. And I don't like saying it, because I love the Giants. But still, that's uninspired. I would put £1 into the short off the back for that. Meanwhile, for Christmas, I'll continue wearing my Dicko.
Yeah. We have jerseys. We have Christmas jerseys from previous years, which I think Dave has a full team's worth of jerseys from Christmas from previous years. But yeah, I kind of get what you mean. I just think I think it's slightly better. I think I would say I think there's a comment here. I think it's better than last year's, and I would tend to agree. I think I agree with that. I think it's more, what I like about it is that it does seem to be a bit more in your face. I like it. I like the it's more. I like that it's a bit more in your face and you can see, and it's very Christmassy. But yeah, I don't know. I think was the elf that we have the elf one last year? Was that the elf one last year? The year before, where they're dressed as giant elves and had and I didn't like that one at all. I just thought it was so bad. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's the first team to release their release a Christmas jersey pretty early on, even before they release their Halloween jersey. So we'll wait and see what other teams do around the league. I'm having real difficulty getting this last image up. Sorry, Anthony. But I know the Bees are doing their variation. They're doing a variation, I believe, from the looks of it, on Freddy Krueger as well. Let me see. Yeah, I don't think I can. Let me see. Hang on. Wait. Oh, hang on. Let me see if I can add it here. Give me a second. Let me just press this button here. This is very interesting viewing for anybody who's watching or for anybody who's listening on the
on the Giants Christmas one. I have to agree with John. It's a bit lackluster. It is better than previous years, but yeah, I wouldn't be behind a replica.
While you're trying to get that sorted, Marty, bring in Fuzz on this one. He's absolutely nailed it. Die Hard, a white tank top, a dirty white tank top that leads down at the very bottom of the jersey to two little bare feet.
We're not getting into it. There you go. There's the bees one there. So
nice.
That's a variation as well of the Freddy Krueger one. So that's the last of our jerseys.
That's very good.
I like it.
Yeah.
I actually think I like that one more than I like the Dundee one, to be honest. The Dundee one's nice, but I think I like that one more.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think the fact that they've done some design with the logo and stuff as well, I think that's
actually my favorite one I've seen so far.
Yep.
Definitely. Okay, that's it.
Again, no. The duck doing the drum roll was the best thing of this period so far.
Anthony, you'd be in the professional in the room here, you know.
If nobody has seen it, go and look at the Anaheim Ducks X page and scroll down until you see the duck drumming, and it's well worth about 16 seconds of your life.
Give him his name.
Ben Affleck.
Watch Ben Affleck do a drum roll to release the jersey. It's amazing.
Spot on. Marty, do you want me to rock on to what's next?
If you'd like, it is your segment. It is a new segment it's a new feature to the show. So rock on. You can introduce it, and I'll hit the button and get us ready to go.
Here we go. So, in the off season, I had a random idea that I thought it would be good for us to try and reach out to the teams across the Elite League and see if we could have a chat with some players. In particular, I thought it would be a good idea for us to have a chat with the one or two, as it turns out, 6 or 7 number 14s across the league. And the first team to get back to us, the first player to get back to us, was Guildford Flames number 14, Ben O'Connor. Inaugural 14 with 14 by Team GB gold medalist, 2-time EIHL League champion, EIHL Challenge Cup and Playoff champion, NIHL Cup champion, to name just a few, and current Guildford Flames defenseman and number 14, Ben O'Connor. Ben, thanks for agreeing to have a chat with me. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, not too bad. Thanks a lot for having me.
So 14 and 14 is a new segment to the podcast. Our hope is that through these chats we'll get to know more about players who wear the number 14 across the game, both on and off the ice, giving a different kind of insight for fans. And if it helps, you can think of it as the much shorter hockey equivalent of Vogue's 73 question series. With that in mind, Ben, I'll get started with the first question, if that's okay.
Yeah, fire away.
So first things first, what's your coffee order?
Do you know what? I don't drink tea or coffee. I'm not a big fan of it. I've tried everything. When I was in Sheffield, Jono and Dowdy, they all try to get me on all the Starbucks orders, and I just don't like it. Green tea is about as exciting as I get. Or a white Monster, that's where I get my caffeine. So,
oh, wow, okay.
Pretty disappointing.
So, swinging over to hockey then, how did you get started in hockey, Ben?
My dad. My dad played in Durham. I was born, and just, like any kid wants to be, idolizes his dad. And I remember sitting on the steps when I was very young at Durham watching the games, and was on the ice as soon as I could walk, and it's just in my blood, and just wanted to be just like him and play hockey. So, and I was fortunate enough to do that.
Great stuff. So why the number 14 then?
I've had a lot of different numbers over my career. I think coming down to Guildford, Stuart Potts is like a brother to me. He played here for many years, and he wore 14. And I just thought it'd be cool to wear the same number as him.
Cool. Different tack this time. Take a different sort of tack on questions. What's your favorite movie of all time? The one that you'll watch over and over again?
Oh, jeez. There's so many. It depends what kind of mood you're in. You can never go wrong with an old school, something like that. Anything with Adam Sandler. But I definitely have to say something along the lines of Step Brothers or Old School, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned your dad was a big influence, but it may be the same answer for this one. But who or what do you think's been the biggest influence in your hockey career so far?
Yeah, definitely my dad. If anyone knows Mike, he's very grounded, down to earth, and he's always there for support. And he's not very pushy like some parents may be this day and age. He's really laid back, and he's always been there for an ear or a bit of advice. And he's been a really good help having him in my corner throughout my career, having to make some tough decisions, and he's always good to bounce ideas off.
It's not one of the YouTube hockey dads then?
No, definitely not. Most of the advice is just have fun, be a good teammate, and work hard. So he's pretty laid back, and he got some good advice.
Cool. Next question then. You've been handed the aux cord in the locker room pre-game. What's playing?
Oh, I'd have to throw back some 90s, show the imports, some 90s British pop, dance music. This day and age, it's all rap and country. And I'd have to go old school 90s British pop dance music.
Nice. I listed off at the very start, Ben, a few Elite League and British highlights in your career, but what's been your highlight hockey moment of your career so far?
Oh, there's quite a few. I've been fortunate to win in a lot of places, and I think as a national team, what we've done is fantastic. Back-to-back gold medals, getting up to Pool A, and then staying up, being 3-0 down against France, and just coming back. It gives me goosebumps now talking about it. And again in Nottingham last year, getting promoted again. It's something that I'm going to be an old man, and I'm still going to smile and watch the videos and have beers with the other boys and talk and laugh about it, because it's something that's very special. Now on the club side of things, in Sheffield, we won back-to-back league titles on the last weekend of the year, which was pretty cool. Going to Hungary 2 years ago, and we won the treble. That was really fun to win it in a different country and see how they celebrate, how much it meant to those fans. And I've been fortunate to win, and every time you win, there's a different feeling, a different meaning behind it. But I think definitely what we've done with the national team, hands down, it trumps everything.
Brilliant. Off the ice again then, what's the go-to comfort meal for Ben O'Connor?
Oh, if I'm having a cheat day, it's got to be either a burger or a pizza. Probably just a big bacon cheeseburger, something greasy. And you've had 2 or 3 games in the week, and you're dying for that greasy meal. It's got to be a big, nice cheeseburger.
Nice. So looking back at hockey again, what are your career aspirations? And by that, what I mean is there an ideal I've made it moment? And what does that look like to you?
I think my aspirations right now, hopefully, is to keep playing. I'm getting on. Every year the guys get younger and I get older. So, I just want to keep playing. I love hockey. I love it down here in Guildford. It's a good organization. It's surrounded with good people. I think the I made it moment was winning golds, and with GB, anytime you win, it's a good feeling. And you go into that summer training harder because you want to replicate that. And I know all the guys on Team GB and the guys that are trying to make that team are working very hard this year, not only with the clubs, but to be a part of that GB program come May.
Brilliant. So imagine, if you will, for a second, that the coaches asked you to organise a team day. Where are you taking the lads?
I've organised quite a few team days. So, I mean, I'd start it off with a round of golf with the boys, get a fun format going, a better ball, teams of 3, a couple of beers, a couple of fun holes, get that sorted in the morning. And then maybe a little meal for the boys and some beers on the evening. Maybe some shuffleboard, some darts, beer pong, and just have a good team day out.
Nice. What about pre-game then for you, Ben? What does pre-game look like for you, getting ready for a Guildford Flames game?
I typically wake up pretty early. I've got 2 young girls, so I'm used to waking up early. I wake up early, have breakfast, pot around the house, do some housework, laundry, whatever needs doing. Then have breakfast, early doors, and then there's a bunch of us down here that we go and shoot some basketball, get moving around a little bit, come back, have pre-game meal around 11:30, 12, and then have a nap for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then wake up and head to the game. Nothing really too exciting.
What about away from the game then, Ben? How do you switch off from hockey?
Just spend time with my children, friends, going to whack a golf ball. Just the standard, really. Nothing outrageous. The odd beer here or there with the boys, and driving range. Coming into winter, you don't get many holes in, so driving range and just the standard. Nothing outrageous.
Do you have an NHL team that you follow, Ben?
Yeah, I like the Leafs. I've always supported the Leafs. And
standard horrific follow-up question for a Leafs fan then. You going to win the cup this year?
Yeah, if we can make it past the first round, it's good. I'm an NHL fan though. I like watching the exciting players, and you turn on the highlights in the morning, and it's just fun to watch the teams with those highlight players, and what they do is special.
Yeah. To wrap up then, Ben, if you could go back and give 10-year-old you one piece of advice, what would it be?
Just have fun, work hard, be a good teammate, and always come to the rink every day with a smile on your face, and be a good teammate. Because you know what, I've played with people that are very good, and it might not last forever. So just make the most of it, and just work hard. Work hard it comes for free. So you give good effort every day, it gets noticed.
Brilliant. Ben, huge thanks for giving up your time to chat and giving us an insight into yourself both on and off the ice, and good luck for the rest of the season with the Flames.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. All the best.
Cheers.
Well, thank you so much again to Ben O'Connor for giving his time to John and taking part in our inaugural 14 with 14. John, thank you as well for suggesting the feature and bring it alive. We hope to bring everyone, I suppose, each team to take part. We hope that's our aim, and we hope to have another player next year. Or sorry, next episode. We hope to have.
Listen. Some of the emails haven't had responses yet. I'll be totally honest. We do have a couple of irons in the fire. There are a few that we're working on. Some are further down the road than others. So I am hopeful that we're going to have maybe not one every podcast, but hopefully fairly regularly we'll get through them. So anyone who does the research, there are 7 number 14s in the Elite League this season. There are 3 number 15s, so we are substituting with a couple of teams with the number 15s. Cardiff, an obvious one, who have retired number 14. Fife this season, I had a bit of a back and forward with them on X at the just before the season kicked off, with the fact that they managed to sign themselves a 13 and a 15 and not a 14. And I believe the other team is Coventry, who don't have a 14 this season. So, like I say, there's work going on in the background. That was a first for us as well, but fingers crossed we're going to have more as the season goes on.
Fantastic job, by the way, Jim.
Yeah, great job.
And look, I've got to say as well, massive thanks to the Guildford Flames organisation, and in particular to Ben as well, who was very, very quick in coming back to me and organising a time to have a chat with me. Really nice guy, spoke incredibly well, and even after we finished up there, stuck on with me for another 10 or 15 minutes, had a chat. Was having a go at me for the Belfast Giants logo in the background here. And had, like I said earlier on, he had nothing but good things to say about Daniel Tedesco as well when we got chatting a little bit about his move across to Belfast. So massive
Did you
thanks
ask
to
him
Ben
about
as well.
that? The hand pass? Did you ask him?
Absolutely not. I didn't ask him about his hand pass to Colin Shields for that goal that was in our intro for a couple of seasons. 100% I did not.
Oh well. No, thank you so much. And we do hope to bring you more as the season goes on. That's it, I think, for this week. It's covered quite a lot. And we will. Oh, look, John's background. I don't know how it just exploded when he put up his thumb. I don't know what. We have to try to figure that out. But anyway, we will wrap off this episode as we normally do, and just point everybody in the direction of our social media and our website. So if you want to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can check them out on our website, door14hockey.com. Check out our social medias, get involved, send us questions, send us your stories on our social media channels, Door14Hockey on Twitter /X, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and also Door14Hockey on YouTube. We will link all of those up on our social medias this week. Check back on previous episodes as well. Just any your podcast provider of choice. We're on all of them. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us comments and ratings, because we really do appreciate that. I do want to thank everyone who has listened to our previous episode. It is now, I don't know what happened over this last 2 or 3 weeks. Last 2 weeks, we've had really good responses to the episode. So thank you very much for those who are new to the show and who started listening in. And for anybody who's new to this episode, we hope you've enjoyed.
Hello, everyone in Columbus.
Yeah. Hello, everyone in Columbus, which seems to be a big following in Columbus. Don't know what that's about. But yes, so thank you so much for that. That's it for this week. I'm going to sign off. I'm Marty.
I'm Dave.
I'm John.
I'm Aaron.
Have a great week.